Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, friends of ours from Oakville, Ontario, and in cities around Canada and around the world. Thank you so much for joining us tonight for OFFA's screening of Things I Do for Money, the first film in this season's OFFA online winter screening series. My name is Tyler Collins. I'm the arts reporter for Oakville News and oakvillenews.org. You can read us for free every day on oakvillenews.org on the web. The OFFA would also like to thank our co-sponsor, Sheridan College, as their screening partner for this series of films running from now until April, which feature Sheridan alumni in successful careers in the film and TV industry. Beyond that, we've even got a couple of them on this Q&A tonight.
Woo! Wow.
We hope you've all enjoyed the film that you've just finished watching. And we're so excited to bring you an amazing array of people from the cast and crew who are here to answer your questions live tonight. If you'd like to submit a question, all you have to do is type it into the Eventive chat and they'll get forwarded to me, where I'll be moderating the conversation between our fabulous cast and crew. We have people who've joined us from all over, not just Ontario and Canada, but different continents tonight. Let's just quickly introduce everybody to you. First, we have Warren P. Sonoda, who was the director and co-author on the film.
Hello. Great to be here.
Sitting next to him is producer Jen Pogue.
Hi.
Also here is producer Avi Federgreen.
Hello.
Along with executive producer and distributor Andrew Hunt.
Hey, everyone.
From the cast, we have got stars and composers of the film, Maximilian and Theodor Aoki.
Thanks for having us.
We've got also from the cast, all the way from London, England tonight, in a radical time difference. We are grateful she's here, Colette Zacca, who played Brenda.
Hello.
Thanks for staying up, Colette.
Also joining us from the crew tonight is Sheridan alumni and sound recorder Spencer Seibert.
How's it going?
With the best mic setup of all of us. What's that?
It's expensive. What can I say?
Wow, look, hear that sound recording. That quality is so fabulous.
It's the bass. You want the bass to come through.
So, I think you should do this for a living.
I might.
So to start tonight, I want to go with a general question to some of the creators behind the movie. And this is just for anybody. Where did the concept and the idea for the story of Things I Do for Money come from? And how did it evolve into a motion picture?
Thanks, Tyler. And thanks for having us, Wendy and everybody from Sheridan and OFFA. We're coming from Halifax, Nova Scotia. Just big shout out to everybody out here who've been very hospitable to us. It's lovely out here. The concept kind of came about two ways. One way was Avi Federgreen had cornered me at a film party probably numerous times saying we have to make a movie. And finally, one day I said, I think I have something for us. And I don't even think we had a fully fleshed out idea, but my co-writer, Gary Nolan, who is not on this Zoom, but is with us in spirit. He's in Hamilton right now. Him and I have been writing scripts for years. And Things I Do for Money is actually my 11th feature film. And Gary's one of my oldest best friends. And we've been writing scripts. And I kind of felt guilty that none of the scripts we had written had ever been produced. So out of this guilt came this idea to make something. And Jen and I were actually here in Halifax again, and Gary flew out to kind of talk story. I was working on This Hour's 22 Minutes, and I had
and go to the Keats Brewery.
Yes,
yeah.
Yes, and have wonderful food. And we kind of came up with this idea based around Max and Theo, because Gary had known them through teaching in Hamilton. Gary's a teacher, and he knew their mom, who's also a teacher, and Max and Theo were kind of on my radar for a couple of years. And then one day out of the blue, you guys got a call. No, was it a call or an email?
I think it was an email.
It was an email, and it was like, let's meet up. We have something to talk about. And we had been working on the script for months by this time, and we hadn't even talked to them about it. And we wrote it specifically for them. I mean, two Japanese Canadian cello playing brothers from Hamilton. If we weren't going to get these two, we would never make this movie because you can't cast that. So we took them out to a Starbucks and pitched them the idea. They immediately said yes. I said, go home and think about it because you have to commit. This will be the hardest thing you have ever done. And the next day we talked and they said they were in. And I think that's around the time, Avi, I called you, right? Or I said, hey, I think I got something. And I gave you the elevator pitch. We went to Andrew at Raven Banner, gave you the elevator pitch. You got coverage, and the coverage was awful on the script. And I remember the conversation. It was like, Warren, this, the coverage on this isn't great. Do you really want to make this? I'm like, you got to trust me. Let's make this movie. And once Raven Banner was on, we were kind of full steam ahead to put it together. That's the long answer, Tyler.
Awesome. So next, I'd like to go to our three members of the cast who are with us tonight. One of the defining characteristics of the movie, especially for the three of you, were some of the morally questionable choices that you were forced to make, whether doing it for ethical, pious reasons or otherwise. What's it like to approach acting on camera knowing you have to make these really high stakes, serious choices?
I think something I can say about at least Nick's character, which I played. And by the way, we're coming from Hamilton, Ontario, where the movie takes place, which is really cool. Is that as first-time actors, we were really blessed to be written a script for that very much fit our personalities already, just a very extreme version of them. So I think Nick's character is very much like he wants to be a rock star and he wants to party, and everything he does is kind of motivated by kind of wanting to fit in with this cool group of people and well, in this case is gangsters, but it's in my life, I also like partying, and I like this. I like the idea that Nick has, kind of. So to sort of substitute kind of my own experiences in that situation helped a lot, and also for the acting side, we had amazing coaching from Laura Norden from Toronto, right?
Yeah.
On this same topic, maybe both of you could talk about what was it like having a project written specifically for you as people, but then translating it to be characters once you've got the words.
It was, well, as Max was saying, it was really nice because we got to work sort of within, even though it was super outside of our comfort range, because we're trained cellists, we're not actors anyway, but even outside of that.
Well, you are now, son.
Oh, how things change.
You like it or not?
It was comforting to still be able to sort of inhabit the same personality space that we're usually in, and I don't know. It kind of just deepened our connection with the project, I feel, and yeah.
And it helps that the whole any scene where there's a kind of a brother connection, whether that's a like one of those tender moments or a confrontation, you can really play up in those scenes the fact that we actually are brothers. So we have no problem, yelling at each other and getting really up close and personal.
What's the difference between being brothers in real life and then being brothers on camera?
That's a good question.
I feel like the biggest difference is that our story looks so much cooler on screen.
We really did write the script to play into their strengths, Tyler, in terms of like Gary knew who they were beforehand. He's known them for years since they were right? So we did try to sculpt those scenes. We only had a couple months to prepare for write the script, cast, find the locations, get the financing. Jen and her team at Film Coop, Laura Norden and Emily Andrews, had to put together a crew and go out. We had to go out and find locations. So it was very fast. And the last thing we wanted to do was get them out of they're already out of their comfort zone, but like to completely make them feel not a part of it, we didn't want to do. On the other hand, we had no idea who Brenda was going to be. We just had no clue. We wrote this character in a vacuum. So on one hand, we had the peace of mind knowing who our two leads were going to be because they already said yes, and we wrote the script for them. And they rewrote this entire script for people we had no idea who would inhabit these characters. And thank God Colette answered the call.
Yeah, no, but this part was written for me. I felt when I read it that this part was written for me. It was mine. And I had to cast for it. And I was like, no, there's no way I'm not going to do this. This is mine. I read it, I was like, yeah, I know this person. I know her. And it's such a joy to get a character like Brenda because I am mischievous. Brenda is mischievous. If you say no to Brenda, she's going to do it anyway, which is what she did. And I'm one of those people, they go, can you do this? And I go, yeah. And I think later, ooh, better look that up and see how I do it. So when I read Brenda, I was like, yeah, no. And Emily already knew me. One of the producers already knew me and she knew my capabilities. So she was like, yeah, no, she read it. She was like, this is you. This is your part. So I was just blessed. I was like, yeah, this is me. So there wasn't that much work to do, but just make her believable, which is kind of hard because she's in a wheelchair. She's in a 60s, 70s, whatever she's in, and and she's a lead gangster. But when you think about it, you say to yourself, well, what happens to gangsters when they get old? They don't stop being gangsters. If you're a butcher, you don't stop being a butcher, do you?
Mm-hmm.
So Colette, you're definitely. It's interesting to hear you talk about the comparisons between you and Brenda from their personality and the inside out. I want to talk a bit about the technical aspects of acting because the transformation you did was quite radical. Not just physically, but your voice, your demeanor, and your actual tactile behavior.
Mm-hmm.
What were some of the challenges of those technical changes you had to make?
Some of the challenges were, for me, sort of how she inhabits her clothes. It was important for me to have clothes that I felt she would wear, that, I kind of always start at shoes, but because she's not walking, it went into the clothes
And
rather than
jewelry
into
too, right, Colette? Jewelry, like we went on a run with you to actually find specific.
Yeah, to find pieces that she would really wear, and also because I was using my West Indian accent, so it made her more grounded. West Indian women of that generation are kind of more just not going to take any BS,
They're very
lived
straightforward.
Yeah, they're straightforward and down the line. I call them, they pick at your worst bits, if that makes sense. They will, for example, when I went to Jamaica to see my family, the first thing they would be like saying, like, oh, who's a little knock-kneed girl? Who, what? So they pick out, who's the cross-eyed person? They pick out your worst bits, and that's what they'll always call you.
All right. Next, I'd like to talk to our three producers that we have on the line with us. Hamilton, Ontario sees a lot of filming activity, but not often does Hamilton get filmed for a story set in Hamilton, Ontario. So can you talk about some of the decisions you had to make to kind of pay homage to the city of Hamilton? And in what way did the city become a character in the movie?
Well, I mean, I think the city, Warren and Gary were both born and raised in Hamilton. And knew Hamilton inside and out. So the city was definitely a huge character in the film from day one. And it was also such a joy to work with people that knew Hamilton inside and out, because it felt like we had all these secret passageways to so many things, and we had so many people on our
Kelly
side.
Carney,
and
shout out to our locations manager.
yeah, we had a
Kelly
locations
Carney.
manager, Kelly, who really made a lot of things happen for us, which was incredible. And we pillaged families' places as well, including Max and Theo. We shot in their actual house that they live in. Is that the one you're in right now?
That's right. Yeah.
Hey, I'm sorry, flag on the play. Are you guys currently doing this Zoom interview from the house you filmed in as your house?
No, their house is the house where Gonzo goes to break the arms of the cellist and the violinist.
Oh,
just a really quick scene.
And Dax's house. Alexi's house is Gary's house.
My co-writer's house.
Co-writer.
And then we got an Airbnb to be the Yaguchi house. That is the main house because we needed it for several nights to film in. But I mean, the one great thing is both Andrew and Avi, they never balked at Hamilton being Hamilton, not once. You guys both kind of embraced that idea, right?
Well, I mean, go ahead, Andrew. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, yeah, it's long overdue that Canadian cities play Canadian cities, that they play themselves. Like I was a big fan of, and still am, of Cronenberg, and I always loved that Cronenberg not only shot his films in Toronto, but they were set in Toronto. You know what I mean? So yeah, it was finally nice to see Hamilton play itself for once.
And the other thing too is that a lot of most of the crew came from Hamilton, most of the cast came from Hamilton, which was great because they know the city. The vibe is a very Hamilton vibe film. I've shot numerous films in Hamilton and shows in Hamilton, and if you're gonna shoot Hamilton as Hamilton, then you should work with as many people from there who get the vibe of the city. And that's part of the beauty of the film, is that it does feel, everything about it feels Hamilton. And we had the city behind us, the film office, various organizations in Hamilton that donated stuff to our show.
The Japanese Cultural Center was crucial.
Yeah, the Japanese Cultural Center. Like the love and support that we got from the city, we wanted to treat the city with the respect it deserved, and it shows on screen for sure.
Totally.
Oakville next, right, Wendy?
Can I tell this? The only time it almost got messed up was when our editor, Anna Catley, who's from out west, she's not from here originally, she put a shot in the opening film of the water tower to establish that we were in Hamilton, but she put in Milton's water tower, not Hamilton's, which was hilarious.
Well, because he thought it was Milton.
Yeah.
No, I've said it for years. You can't spell Hamilton without Milton.
Yeah. Luckily, we caught that, and we said, okay.
They're cousins. It's good intentions.
Yeah.
We had a late joiner on our call with us that I haven't yet
Eric Fournier
introduced. We have Eric Fournier, who is the assistant stunt coordinator on the movie.
Correct. Yeah. Hello, everyone. I apologize for my tardiness.
Welcome, man. It's all good.
I also neglected to introduce Wendy Donnan, who is with us with OFFA, and she's also on with us tonight as we were going around. So maybe let's go to you next, Eric.
Sure.
Here's an easy question. What was the most challenging stunt you guys had to produce, and how did you pull it off?
Well, I was only there for one day. I only assisted for one of the days that Richard Collier, who was the stunt coordinator, needed some help with. And funny enough, actually, the most difficult thing was falling to the ground. That was the most difficult thing. A lot of people don't realize that that's actually the number one thing that hurts actors the most, is falling to the ground. Because most of the time you think to yourself, oh, that's easy, I'll just fall myself to the ground. But people don't realize that while the ground is always there to catch you in its nice, not so soft cradling arms, it will catch you, and people will tend to just throw themselves with abandon, forgetting that the ground is a lot harder than they realize it is sometimes. And so teaching people how to go to the ground safely, but also still make it look like they're going to the ground for whatever reason they're going to the ground for. In this case, it was the scene where everyone gets shot up, and people die, and so
Everyone saw the movie, Eric, tonight.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm just trying to remember which day I showed up on. And
it was the one day we had actual live fire squibs, right?
Yeah. Yes, I think it was.
In the alleyway. In the alleyway.
Oh no, not the alleyway. No, it wasn't the alleyway day. I did the day in front of the convenience store. The corner store. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yes. Right. And that was all CG stuff. But yeah, we had actors dropping like flies that day.
And what's fun is that on some days you can pad up your actors, right? You can give them padding so that they can protect their joints and areas where bones protrude and stuff like that. But I was in charge of the one gentleman who was wearing very little. And so it's very difficult to pad someone up who is already wearing no clothing practically. And so I had to make sure my number one priority was his safety. And so that's what I had to do. I had to make sure that he understood how to go down to the ground so that it's still believable that he was still getting hit and falling because his body just basically goes limp, right? But at the end also making sure that he is going down safely. And so there are some shots that are done with pads, with mats on the floor, right, where we don't see the ground, and then others where you can see the ground, right? I'm going to stop talking and let you ask questions.
Maximilian, I think you're the only one of the three of our cast who was in that scene, kind of watching Alexei go through this bloodbath outside the convenience store. As someone who wasn't getting shut up, what's it like to see this orchestration of everyone, fall into the pavement?
It was really, really, I think that was one of my favorite days. It was very exciting being kind of almost.
Maximilian says that about every day when you ask him. So you're gonna ask him another day in a couple minutes. You'll be like, "Oh no, that was one of my favorite days on set."
No, because I felt like I was a camera from just further back.
Right.
Because most of after we did like my quick kind of facial elements, whatever, they made sure they caught all of the action going on outside the pharmacy, and I'm just sort of there in the background, seeing everything just go to a dumpster fire very quickly.
Goes to 2020 really quick.
Very, very quickly. It was weirdly it was a weird kind of premonition. But it's very interesting to see the film kind of set up going up and have the diffusion kind of layers to block the sun, and all the cameras come out and all of the crew on the side to help. I was mostly worried about being in a standard car and driving off when I needed to. So I had my foot just pressed on the clutch, ready to go.
And a little trivia on that scene, Tyler. So they go to confront Turcotte, and then his brother comes out, and the brother's actually played by Gary Nolan, who's the co-writer of the film, because he was very cheap to put in the movie.
So, of course, tonight's event is co-sponsored by Sheridan College, and we've got 3 Sheridan graduates who worked on the film here. That's Andrew, Spencer, and then Eric. So we're going to start with the 3 of you guys, but then I want to expand the pool to answer this. For the 3 of you, for current film students who are still in classes right now, what is some of the best advice you would give to a current film student as they approach their first project?
That's tough.
Got an idea?
That's actually tough.
Yeah,
because the reality is that you want to be getting on set like as often as possible. It depends on who you are, right? Because there's people who want to do set work, and there's people who want to do post work, and then there's people who couldn't have the patience for either. They want to just maybe go corporate, or maybe they don't even want to do film. You never know. The whole film school experience is a journey in itself. So that has to be figured out on an individual basis. But getting on set is the most important thing. You will learn more on one day of set than you will in months at film school, just by taking on the role that you got employed for and doing it to the best of your ability and beyond probably what you've ever done before, because you're going to get physically, emotionally abused. And that's just par for the course. You just got to get through it.
I know for me, one of the things that I always fought with early on was that fear of failure, of wanting to make a perfect film, of everything to be like, has to be just right. And you can't do that first time out, and nor do you want to. You want to make mistakes. You learn a lot from your mistakes. Yeah, exactly. And so just giving yourself the freedom to fail and to learn from that experience, and that's how you better yourself in your craft, is learning
Speak for
from
yourself.
your mistakes.
My first feature is fantastic.
Well, you're a god, Avi.
I'm joking.
Yeah, basically what Spencer and Andrew, I would echo exactly what they said. I went through Sheridan through the acting program, and so, but myself as an actor, like when I'm on set, especially the first time I was ever on set, I just was, mouth closed and just eyes open and a sponge. I just tried to watch and learn as much as I could, because the more I could learn about what other people's jobs were, the easier I could do my job, and the more I could help them, right? And so I just open your eyes, be available for anything and everything, and just be ready to go and learn as much as you can always. And I'm still learning. Like I've been doing so many projects, actor side, stunt side, stunt coordination side, and I'm always just sitting there, always open to help and just listen and learn as much as I can, so that it deepens my knowledge,
Yeah.
Now, I'll actually bring up a little fun fact, is that I directed my very first music video as my final third-year project at Sheridan College. It was for a metal band called Monster Voodoo Machine, and that actually kind of launched my little music video director career. But that's how I met Warren. We were directors together back in the 90s at a company called Blackwalk. So it's nice that we were kind of working together back in the 90s, and here we are now, like what, 30, 20, 25 years later, working together again on this.
Well, 5 years. Andrew's being very modest. He made two of the most seminal music videos of that era for the Killjoys, and they
Hamilton band, by the way.
Yeah, like when you were doing that, Stephen Scott was doing Trouble Charger, Lisa Mann was doing Odds, Jeff Renfro was doing Headstones, and I was 21, failing out of Ryerson Film School, and just basically volunteering on all your film sets.
And actually, I remember you helping me edit that first Killjoys music video that I did. Were you not?
Was it?
Were you not helping me with that one?
Yeah, I was syncing your rushes, I think.
Yeah.
So speaking of music, that was one of the huge pillars of this project. And not just was this the acting debut of Theo and Maximilian, but also it was your composing debut for a motion picture, because maybe not here everyone in our audience knows this, but you guys not only performed your cellos in the movie, but wrote the original score that you then performed yourselves as well for the whole film.
The probably the real most exciting moment of the project for us, I think, was composing Monument, which is the final climactic piece that I guess Eli starts in the beginning. You want to actually start off with that?
Yeah, so we got the first draft of the script, and we were going through, and I think originally we had it set up so that we'd play this very classical two cellos duet called Vivaldi's Concerto, I think in G minor or something.
Yeah, it's public domain, classical, really old composer.
And every person who's heard two cellos play two cellos has definitely heard that, because that's like the one. And it's a good song. No disrespect to Antonio, but but we thought, you know what, it could be better. We could get more into the script a little bit.
Especially because we were given the script well in advance, and there was about these 5 pages at the end of this like climactic shootout, heist, everything, where the action is directly in between the music, and then they're both together, and every single action you're given kind of in the script is informed by what's going on in the music. So we just then went on a whole different path of doing something completely original.
Well, and the script was actually written with Vivaldi, because Gary and I know nothing about cello, and we just put that in. And also, we didn't want to put extra work and pressure on you both, because even I know, and I know very little about music, but even I know asking 2 people that have never acted before to star in a movie and then write a 6-minute climax song is probably a pretty tall order, especially when you only have like a week or 2 to write it and record it. So we didn't want to put any extra pressure on you, but it was actually you guys that came to us.
Yeah, and I think also the fact that we had only about 2 weeks to do it was exciting as well. I think when it actually ended up happening is we just locked ourselves in the house and finished it out in like 2-3 days. But it's
3 days.
Yes, it's actually the song itself is a compilation of a couple of different themes that we've kind of been working around with since 2016. But then there need to be transitions, and there need to be a main theme, and there needed to be like we talked with Warren and Gary very intensely about how this first section is very much like the exposition of what's going on in this heist, and then the second section is this cat and mouse theme, where Mary's trying to find Tosh, so it has to transition that way, and now the 2 cellos have to play off each other. Now there's a slow section where there's a buildup of intensity, and then when you get to the one crazy part that Eli has to play, that he's played through the entire movie, that he can't get down he can't get down for the entire time, he's working up to it. Warren had called that to us the Achilles heel, because that was Eli's, I guess, cello Achilles heel at the time.
And what a heel it was.
And what a heel it was, because that section is so hard to play that we are sweating bullets behind.
I'm sweating bullets. I don't think I've ever played it correctly once the entire way through. I mean, like, because for the film, we did all like the recording, copying together slides of stuff.
So we have our first question from the audience. This is from April Takeda, and she's asking, will the soundtrack be available for purchase?
Thanks, April Takeda. She was one of the most important people in this movie, because her and her husband Chris run the Japanese Cultural Center in Hamilton. So thanks for listening.
We're saviors.
Yeah. Ali, do you want to kind of talk about, we're working on it right now, basically, right?
Yeah, so the soundtrack will be released hopefully April is what we're aiming for, in conjunction with the physical release of a probably Blu-ray disc for the movie. And then the soundtrack will also be available in over 250 different platforms around the world, like Spotify, Deezer, and many other things. Available through IndieCan Records, which is a record label that I started a number of years ago.
I think Max and Theo are just hearing this right now.
Are there 250 different platforms? Is that a thing?
Yeah, well, each platform, like,
it's a different
territory. The gamut around the world, right? So, like, the main ones are obviously Spotify, Deezer. It'll be on iTunes as well, music. So yeah.
And then for the collectors out there, we are hopefully going to have a vinyl edition of the soundtrack as well that we're putting together.
We got to fix our record player.
Yeah, we have to fix our record player.
I think
Max and Theo have been working really hard with the music producer Byron Kent Wong, who is an old friend of mine from the Keg in Toronto, to put together.
When you worked there or ate there?
Both.
Okay.
To put the music together, and it's just such a good soundtrack. Like,
so, you know when that's going to be available?
April-ish.
We don't have it probably April or no later than May. We're actually in the middle of it right now. We have to master the tracks, and then once it's all mastered, then we will be able to create our final files for the digital platforms, and then go. We're looking into the possibility of issuing a limited edition vinyl album of the soundtrack. And instead of putting the boys' pictures on it, it's going to be Warren's and my picture on the soundtrack. Yeah, so, and we want to release it in conjunction with physical media as well, all around the same day. So.
Well, you heard it here first, folks. Coming later this spring on digital platforms, CD, Blu-rays, and maybe even a vinyl, the original soundtrack written by Theodor and Maximilian Aoki of Things I Do for Money.
Yeah, and part of that is it was actually one of the perks that we sold for our Indiegogo campaign. We were very fortunate, and we were able to raise over $40,000 of our budget to make the movie. So for all those Indiegogo peeps out there, we are working on it. It's been taking some time. Obviously, 2020 was kind of a very extraordinary year for many of us, and put the schedules out of whack. But once the soundtrack drops, I think it's gonna. I think when people can hear it on its own, and boys, I think when they're able to actually hear the soundtrack outside of the movie on its own, it will take on its own life as well.
Maybe we should get some of those Sheridan and other music video directors dust off their chops and shoot some music videos for the soundtrack of the movie.
Would love it.
I'm glad, Warren, you brought up the crazy year that was 2020, because that kind of brings us to our next question from the audience. This is for any of the producers or executive producers on the film, asking, did COVID affect the distribution of the movie? And how is COVID impacting the distribution industry?
Oh, COVID hasn't impacted anything at all, right?
So,
Andrew,
we were literally a week away, Warren, a week away, 2 weeks away?
Well,
a week away.
Yeah, basically a week away from like big time promotion, and then probably
2 weeks.
April 8th, and was when we were going to premiere the first theatrical, which March 13th. So that's like 3 weeks basically.
Away from what?
From our well, we had booked 6 city. I had arranged for a 6-city theatrical release.
Actually,
8 cities. Sorry, you're right. 8 cities, starting in Hamilton at the
Playhouse,
at the
Westdale, and then we had Yonge and Dundas, Cineplex, and we had Winnipeg, and we were basically clear across Canada, and we had to scratch it all because of COVID. And then when we were able to come back, we ended up doing a one-night theatrical at Starlight Drive-In in Hamilton, which we sold it out in literally hours.
Great theater.
Yeah, and so which we're very proud of, and we got to, it's always nice to see it on a big screen and things like that. But I mean, it's unfortunate we weren't able to share the film theatrically across the country like we had planned and worked months and months and months on making happen. But
it was really great because Yonge and Dundas is one of my favorite theaters in Toronto, and we knew just between the people that this whole team knows, we were going to be able to pack it and get a lot of people out there. And
it was Monday of that week when everything went down. Monday, I sent out all the invitations to like 400 of our patrons and followers and Indiegogo contributors to invite them to our premiere that was going to be in Hamilton and the Yonge and Dundas one. And then Thursday, I sent out another email saying, sorry, we got to cancel this. So it happened within days.
Yeah, and by Friday the 13th of March, everything was basically done, and we were just in a holding pattern.
So our next question from the audience, this one is for you.
Bummer question, Tyler.
Good times.
Come on, man. There's some. Hold on, I'm still weeping a little bit over
I know.
this.
The drive-in was fantastic, though. The drive-in came at a very good time for a lot of people, I think.
Yeah.
Like I was told by many people that it had been their favorite night out in months and months and months.
Well, and Andrew, you were able to pivot quite a bit with Raven Banner stuff throughout that summer too, right? You quickly went digital with some of your titles, and definitely with ours, we went digital fully.
Yeah, thankfully we're able to pivot fairly quickly with like a platform like iTunes. But not some of the cable providers, they take a little bit more time, but still we were able to get it out there and adapt to what was happening because we had actually quite a lot of films that we were planning to release and then had to quickly change plans. Even recently, before the second lockdown happened back in December, we were getting ready to release a film in January, and of course then had to pull the plug on that one yet again. So it's been a continuous roller coaster ride that we've had to
Yeah.
So I have a question for our three actors. Knowing that a lot of the distribution now has gone, instead of theaters, but to digital and drive-ins, how does the viewing experience change knowing that it's now coming in these different platforms, especially kind of with the magic of a drive-in movie theater?
What was amazing? Oh, go ahead, Zacca, go ahead.
For me, that was devastating because I couldn't come. I couldn't go. I couldn't be there. And when I saw the footage of it, it just looked like that it would be so exciting. We don't have drive-ins. So it would have been my first drive-in.
Oh. There's
And
no drive-ins at all in England anywhere?
No, we don't do those sort of things. So, but any kind of platform that it gets seen on, it's just exhilarating knowing that they had the drive-in. I was there with them in spirit anyway. Yeah, it's just makes it more exciting. It's something you were in, and it's on this platform and that platform and the other platform. It's wonderful. It's good. What do you think, boys?
I mean, something that was honestly amazing about the driving experience is just hearing everybody honk at the beginning, actually middle and end.
That was our first drive-in too.
That was also our first drive-in, yeah. That was a really great experience.
So close to it.
I know, yeah, we're right there. We gotta go more. But also, even now, there's been such a pivot to kind of doing movie nights with friends and using something like Scener, right, or Netflix Party or something adjacent to all kind of share the experience, and you can still be together. So we had a lot of kind of TIDFM movie nights with friends that went and bought on iTunes, and they really enjoyed it.
Made it even a little more accessible for some of our friends who aren't in Hamilton, who would have been in exams anyway, and they wouldn't have been able to come. So in some ways, it kind of widened it out a little bit for us. But
good silver lining. Silver lining.
It's so hard to see, but that is the.
Okay.
It's hard to see on camera, but we can hear the sound. And you're right. One of the things we kind of got in 2020 here in North America was having premieres at drive-ins and the magic of just hundreds of cars honking as in light of the applause. It's a really cool sound. Mm-hmm. While we're speaking of sound, we're almost at a time, but I've been sitting on this sound question for our friend Spencer, so I want to make sure we get to it. We've had all these instruments, and especially the cellos, which are such a big part of the movie. What's one of the unique challenges that comes from having a movie with diegetic music, where we're literally hearing the cello that we're watching being played?
Tyler did his homework for this. He dropped the diegetic, Spencer. You better have a good answer.
Well, I was gonna say, I don't think that you guys ended up using any of the sound that I would have recorded on the day for
But we did the opening.
The opening. Okay. Yeah, I mean, a good mic in a good space, it'll get what you need. Nothing crazy challenging there. I came into this project as a super green young man. I am still a young man. Don't get over that. But it was very challenging for me coming into that because I literally had no experience. You guys, I mean, really, you shouldn't have hired me, but
you really helped us out because you the original sound recorders had to drop out to do something else, and you came in at the 11th hour, basically.
I did, yeah. I got a text on my birthday saying, "Hey, do you want to be on this movie set in a day?" And I was like, "Hell yeah, I want to be on that movie set." So it really came out of nowhere, and it was such an interesting point in my life because it was like I graduated and nothing was happening for so long, and then you guys brought me onto this shoot, and you brought me on the hardest day. The climax scene where we were shooting at the mansion, right. And that was just like for me, it was just so overwhelming getting to meet everybody, having to meet everybody, like, and then it's like, okay, we're rolling in 30 minutes. Hope you know what you're doing. I think we
like
got there.
People talking. Like
yeah, and I mean, I've thought about this project endlessly for years and years now, or 2 years, and like what I could have done better. But the reality is that I was just young and inexperienced, and any of the problems that I caused you guys, I thoroughly apologize for.
Spencer, I recommend you to so many people now, and like you're too busy that you won't even come on my films.
It's what happens, you take the role of the sound person and nobody else likes doing it, so you just keep getting offers.
Well, and that's the thing, you're a sound person on a movie like this where they can just kind of look at the trailer and go, oh, they must have had great sound because it sounds good. And
I hope so.
So much happening. It's action, it's cellos, it's family, it's gangsters. So
yeah, and I think the Post House did an incredible job at like bringing it all together. And I know that you guys had to do a lot of ADR, so sorry about that, but I think it worked out great.
I have one question.
Yes.
Yeah, go
quickly. When's it coming to Europe, or has that been cancelled?
No, Avi?
I knew Colette was going to ask that.
My friends are waiting.
Look, it's in the hands of our sales company, who's actually based in London, company called Evolutionary Films. I've reached out to them to inquire what the status of a UK release is, and I don't have an answer for it. I think part of the other problem with distribution in the UK right now is Brexit and everything else that's going on. So once I hear from them, and if I can get a solid answer, then I'll let you know, Colette, for sure.
Oh.
We're also,
bring it to you,
I said this to Warren the other day, and I got an update last night. The film is being looked at a distributor right now because I'm trying to get the film in Japan right now. He's got a brand new newborn, so he hasn't had time to watch it. He watched the trailer and he was blown away actually by it. And he said that, because I told him that we've been thinking about doing a sequel and shooting it in Japan. And he said, well, I know this really good company who has an office in the US, and this kind of thing is the kind of genre that they're looking for. And so I'd be happy to do an introduction to you guys, and maybe you guys can partner up to do the sequel in Japan.
Yes, in 2022, when everyone's vaccinated.
So we're almost out of time for tonight, but I got a couple quick more questions I want to get to because I got one more from the audience. But first, a quick fun fact for Maximilian and Theo. One of the things I didn't know until after I saw the movie is your real life dad is also in the cast, and he plays just Jimmy. What was it like working with your dad on set?
He was the most dedicated person I've seen in this throughout this entire project.
Ed there?
Sorry?
Is Ed there?
Oh, he's not. No. But he so not only was the concept of being a hitman gangster Yakuza very appealing to him, he would be down in the basement, like yelling his lines at the washing machine every night. Pretty well consistently every single night.
We have a very fancy washing machine.
That's a great way to learn lines. We have an audience question now for Warren. It is an aspiring film student asking what advice you would give to a student entering the industry who wants to be a director.
Show up to things. I mean, it's hard now, but the Zoom, you're on this Zoom, so that's half the battle. Show up to events right now. They're all digital. Listen to the filmmakers out there. Andrew and Avi have just done a slew of different panels over the summer. We just, from our little movie, probably did 6 or 7 Zooms that Colette and Theo and Maximilian were all part of. You just have to start showing up. I do this at film schools because I get asked to come in and kind of talk to film students. And usually in a live setting, there's like 30 people in the class or whatever. And I'll stand at the class. And after a while talking, I'm like, okay, name me 10 Canadian filmmakers. And they, nothing, they can't do it. I'm like, okay, name me 5. And when I get down to 3, they could probably get, Cronenberg, Rosma, James Cameron, Boyan, yeah.
Warren.
And then I just say, listen, not only can I probably name 300 right now on the spot, I've probably had coffee with half of them, and I can call them my friend. That's how invested I am in this industry, and that's how invested, you know, Andrew and Avi are in terms of their journey through this. And it doesn't happen overnight, but one of the things I think film students can do right away is just get invested in the fabric of what this industry is, because it feels so far away. It feels like you're never going to be a part of it. You could be in Sheridan and walk down the street in Toronto and see all these huge, you know, white trucks and the circus and the honey wagons and all these, you know, huge lights and everything, and feel like you're not a part of that. But like the C stand that the Sheridan student uses on their student film is the same C stand that they use on, you know, the Netflix shows. It's like Andrew's first video was at Sheridan, my first video was at Ryerson, you know? So it's only by showing up and getting to know things, like Spencer said, get on set, meet people, learn their names, learn who the films are.
It's all about who you know.
But it's not only that. Watch Canadian film. Like, we make some of the best films of any film in the world. And if you even ask them, forget about the filmmakers, who's the directors. I mean, try getting them to list 5 Canadian films that they've seen.
Yeah.
You got to watch what we make here, because we're winning in. And I looked at Schitt's Creek won all the Emmy Awards. I mean, we're making content better than anybody, and so you need to understand what we're doing here and the people that are behind it, that are making it. And networking, you got to network, you got to get to know everybody in the industry, learning what every single piece of equipment is, learning, you know, everything that there is to know about what we do. I mean, I started as a PA and I asked tons of questions. What does this do? What does that do? What is this thing? What is that thing? And watch and listening and watching and not talking as much, but trying to fill my brain with as much knowledge about what we do for a living and the people that do it. And you know, I'm the person that I am today because of all the people that mentored me in the 25 years that I've been in this business, and still I'm learning every day from somebody in our industry.
And if
I'd add I was just going to say my 2 cents is that of course when Warren and I were at school, like, you had to shoot on film, and you know, you had to get a camera and you had to buy the film and you had to go get it developed, and then you had to, like, you know, edit it, you know, either by slicing it or transferring it to video, and now you can literally shoot and edit a phone on your camera. And so to me, there's no excuse for young filmmakers to be, you know, to be shooting stuff right at home on your phone, because you can shoot high quality stuff on there and you can learn the basics of filmmaking, you know, right on your camera. So just shoot.
And I'll also say this to our BIPOC friends, LGBTQ plus, filmmakers from underrepresented communities, filmmakers with disabilities. We need to hear your stories too. Things I Do for Money came out of the ability that I had, which is a privileged ability to go out and make film because I wanted to, because I had friends like Avi and Andrew, and I knew people like Max and Theo, and Colette came on board, and I had a wonderful wife and her team of producers. But if you're coming from a place in a community that doesn't have that access, I can just say that the access is starting to happen. The doors are starting to open, and just don't take all the no's at face value and keep pushing through. Keep working on your stories. Keep finding your voice, because that specificity of voice that you have as a young artist is the most important thing. And that's what I've been trying to catch up to, because I've always been good at execution and being able to bring my shows in on time and on budget and work with crews and no lenses and all that. But that's secondary to actually having a vision and a point of view of how you see the world. And I think as we grow as an industry into this new era, that's going to be the most important thing for our directors, our screenwriters, our producers to have, is their own point of view and the way that they see the world. So keep working.
So I can tell you, we're getting a huge amount of praise for all of your comments spurring from this in the chat that's coming in here. And this is and thank you for saying that, Warren, because that is a great segue into our last question of the night. For you specifically, but also for Maximilian and Theo, Things I Do for Money is very intently about the Japanese Canadian experience, which is not something I personally have ever seen on camera before. So to end us off for the night, can the three of you just very quickly talk about what the resonance and the importance of having that story being shown is?
I'll go first. I'll let the boys finish up because they're much younger and better looking than I am. It's actually historical. Things I Do for Money is historical in this context. There's never been a film co-written and directed by Japanese Canadians starring 4 Japanese Canadians ever. I want to say crime film or genre film, but I've been trying to do the math here, and we haven't found one yet specifically. It's always great to be first, but it's also that dubious honor because, like, why haven't there been more stories for us about us? And I get it. I mean, one of the things Things I Do for Me touches on, and it has nothing to do with the movie, but everything to do about being Japanese Canadian is my parents, and then it would be Theo and Max's grandparents. They would have been interned in World War II. My parents were interned. So as a son of Japanese Canadians, that basically everything was taken away from them, their houses, their record players, their belongings. They were told to pack one bag. Families were separated. They were put in basically old mining towns, which they called internment camps. And then the male Japanese Canadians were put in forced labor camps east of the Rockies. And you wonder, why there isn't a really deep and rich storytelling within the Japanese Canadian community. Well, the first thing my mom and dad wanted to do was make me assimilate and be normal and be Canadian and not speak Japanese and not be different, not be othered, because I'd get beat up or I would get bullied. So Things I Do for Money is me catching up to my Japaneseness. And it was just a great experience to be able to kind of sit down with a story that it didn't really have to be about Japanese Canadians. It's a crime movie, and it just happens to be about a family that are Japanese. And that's kind of subversively, that's kind of my way in politically to kind of touch on a greater issue of, well, why aren't there Japanese stories? Well, a lot of it is because filmmakers of my generation, I'm in my 40s, we weren't really in touch with our Japaneseness until much later in life. So it's great to do, and hopefully it won't be the first and only one, but certainly seeing Theo and Maximilian sort of just take the mantle and go for it, it was thrilling to see. And their dad and then Rhett Morita to share the screen together. It's historically a first, which was, I'm very proud of that. Boys?
I think also the point that you mentioned there, Warren, at the end, of the fact that these roles happen to be these 2 Japanese Canadian brothers, and there are kind of elements of the Japanese Canadian culture in there, and really cool to see part of our heritage represented. Is also that they could have been anybody.
Well, if this was a Hollywood film or a normal genre film, it would be a white family, right? And Colette, you would have been a white gangster, and Yodette, who plays Laura, would have been a white figure skater.
Yeah.
Very specific choices with you and your characters.
There's also I think we're sort of we kind of came into this industry, I guess, at a time that this idea of pushing different stories of different cultures is really being highlighted right now. And I'm just thinking personally, right, to the Asian Creative Network, which is a Facebook group with something like 500,000 members, if not 1 million now, honestly. And everybody just pushes, stories that are directed by someone who's has Asian heritage, or stars, or art directed, or anything. So there's a massive community that I feel like we just sort of stumbled into now, which is amazing to see. And it's such an honor to be part of that here.
And it was great to see the whole cast kind of bond over this, Tyler. And the top 10 of our cast, 8 of them are BIPOC, are diverse actors. And we're just really proud of being able to tell this story and tell it the way we wanted to, and have fun with it, because this movie really shouldn't exist. No one ever came up to me and said, Warren, what I really want is a crime cello caper movie about 2 Japanese Canadian brothers from Hamilton, Ontario that steal a bag of money. I've never gotten that request. No one's ever done that. You might have asked me.
Okay.
Once,
Yeah.
but
I'm your biggest fan.
I didn't take it.
Well, I didn't know that I needed a crime cello caper movie set in Hamilton starring 2 Japanese Canadian brothers of the same city. But now that I have it, I didn't know it had been missing all along.
Exactly.
To end us off, Theo, is there anything else you'd like to add on?
Oh, I guess just like it was great getting to like connect a little more with like the Japanese community, and like I was just thinking about, we were talking about Rhett and Rita. We're working with him, and we're working with the with our dad, and we were at your house and we were working on the Japanese lines, and I thought, wow, this is the most Japanese people I've been around who weren't in my entire life.
It's true. It's true. Our community, there's not a lot of us, and for all the reasons I was talking about earlier, we've been separated. We've kind of been, unless you're direct family. I don't have a lot of. I didn't have a lot of Japanese friends except for the past couple of years, where I've actively gone out and searched for them. Mayumi Ishida on BC, Randall Akita here in Ontario. But we had to find each other. It's tough to find other filmmakers that are Japanese, but they're, we're starting. We had to get the door open so others could follow, and hopefully it always helps when you go on a set and you see someone else that looks like you.
Mm.
It makes you feel like, oh, I'm welcomed here. People want me here. And I'm sure Theo and Maximilian, you've been in that situation, and Colette, you felt that walking on a set, right?
Yeah, I think that was the most unique thing about the whole process, was to walk on set and see multicultural and just go, wow, okay, I can just be myself. I don't have to be better than the best. I have to do my best, but I don't have to be, which is always how you are on set. When I do something here in the UK, you are looking constantly for someone who looks like you, whether it's in front of the camera or behind the camera. And when you see someone behind and in front, you're so grateful. And it was a blessing to work with you guys, because it was a blessing right from the beginning.
The blessing of multiculturalism, I think, very well celebrates the best of Canadian entertainment, but specifically a lot of the Hamilton-Toronto corridor too. We're blessed to be one of the most multicultural places in the world, and to see those efforts, those stories, and that talent both in front of and behind the camera is a great testament to what all of you here tonight made. Unfortunately, we are way over time tonight, but what a fabulous conversation that we got to have, and you, the audience at home, got to enjoy. This was a really, really special treat to have all 9 of you here tonight. So from OFFA and Sheridan, we really want to thank Theo, Max, Warren, Jen, Andrew, Colette, Avi, Spencer, and Eric, all of you guys, for making the time to be here tonight, especially Colette, for whom it is now the middle of the night.
Morning now, isn't it?
It's 3 a.m. now, I think.
3 a.m. Might as well just
Why bother going to sleep? Just stay up.
where's your bed?
So thank you also to our friends at Sheridan College, who are the co-sponsors for this. Thank you to Wendy and our friend Tori, who is behind the scenes running the technical specs for us. Guys, thank you so much for joining tonight's screening of Things I Do for Money. Don't forget, we have 2 more entries in the OFFA Winter Screening Series. Coming up in 3 weeks, we have Viggo Mortensen's directorial debut, Falling, another great Canadian picture. And we have some surprise guests for the Q&A, including Sheridan alumni Elizabeth Lee, local Oakville actor Piers Bivaget, who plays Will, and a number of other surprise guests who I'm not allowed to tell you who it is yet. But I can tell you really want to be
Start
here.
with a V and M with an M? No.
You really want to be here for this Q&A because there's so many great people, including the most handsome movie critic in Halton, me. But don't forget as well to read Oakville News and oakvillenews.org every single day. For all of us at OFFA, Sheridan, and Things I Do for Money, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Please stay home, wear a mask, stay safe, and thanks so much for joining us with OFFA at the Movies.
Wash your hands. Wash your hands.
Thanks for having us,
Thanks, everyone.
And wash.